have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we are live. This is our family law and policy speeches. I'm Courtney Cagle.
I'm Lehua Corpaz.
I'm Angel Abbott.
So I'm going to start with my speech, but before I start, I do not have a computer with a camera because my husband and I are in the process of moving, and so the computer with the camera is actually in San Diego at the moment. So I will not have a camera, but I will just go ahead and get started. So according to Merriam-Webster, pornography is the depiction of erotic behavior in pictures, writing, books, or photographs for the purpose of causing sexual excitement. Viewing pornography is more common than you may think. According to a study done by Ropalato in 2007, every second there are 28,258 internet users viewing pornography, 372 internet users typing adult search terms into search engines, and $375 is used to purchase pornography. We can't escape pornography. It's all around us. There's pornography on billboards, in magazines, on TV, in movies, on the internet. It's everywhere. Many of you have probably been affected by pornography. I know that it's affected me, and I know many others personally who it has affected. Take my friend and her husband, for instance. My friend's husband has struggled with pornography ever since he was 11 years old. It started with finding a magazine on the side of the road. At this age, he didn't understand what it was. He only knew how it made him feel. Initially, it was exciting, but soon it lost its excitement and led to shame and a lack of confidence. For example, according to researchers Aubrey and Taylor, men who looked at photos of pornography who were scantily clad felt more self-conscious about their own body image than men who hadn't viewed the same type of pictures. This is because they believe that women would want the same type of physique for men. My friend's husband felt self-conscious and he lacked confidence after looking at pictures of women. He thought he had his addiction under control until they started having problems in their marriage. This led to stress, which led to viewing pornography again. Since he first looked at pornography at such a young age, overcoming this addiction was much more difficult than he ever imagined. When she found out, she was devastated. She started struggling with low self-esteem and comparing herself to other women. These are struggles that she still faces today. According to studies found in a journal written by Rasmussen, pornography can have many negative effects on relationships. Many people who view pornography have a lower commitment level because they believe that sexual satisfaction and variety will increase outside of their marriage or relationship. They also become less satisfied with the affection, sexual performance, and sexual curiosity felt in their relationship. It doesn't only affect how the participant views the relationship, it affects the participant's partner as well. Many individuals who have a partner viewing pornography reported feeling betrayed, humiliated, hurt, abandoned, emotionally distressed, and angry. They started to compare themselves with other women, just as my friend did. According to the London School of Economics, 9 out of 10 children between the ages of 8 and 16 had seen pornography on the web. The child accidentally stumbled upon pornography in most of these cases. In the process of doing homework, they would search a word looking for information or pictures, and sex sites were unintentionally accessed. I've had similar experiences, and I'm sure many of you have as well. Ironically, though, there haven't been many laws or policies passed regarding the restriction of pornography. In fact, it was very difficult to find an example of a law being passed regarding pornography. In 1998, Congress passed the Child Online Protection Act. This act aimed at commercial pornography sites online that distribute porn material to minors. In this act, there was a mandate stating that criminal cases under this act would be tried according to community standards of that time. Each day of violation had a penalty of up to 6 months in prison and a fine of $50,000. Ultimately, the act failed. The Supreme Court came to the conclusion that internet filters are sufficient to protect minors, which they aren't, thereby limiting the responsibility of porn sites to secure their material against usage by minors. This is just one case that exemplifies the difficulty of restricting access to pornography, as well as the challenge of limiting those who produce and distribute pornography. The Child Online Protection Act would have been a great start in protecting minors from pornography consumption, especially since many children are exposed to porn on accident. Ultimately, parents need to be educated and aware of the dangers of porn and how easily accessible it is to their children. Federally mandated laws would not replace parental responsibility, but would help in the fight against pornography. That act is a good example of how the legislators were more worried about an individual's right to view pornography than they were about how it destroys families. The statistics are so overwhelming with pornography and how bad it is. By protecting people's First Amendment rights to view or distribute pornography, they're contributing to one of the greatest problems society is facing today. I believe that there should be a law restricting pornography as a whole, but because of the First Amendment and the freedom of speech, this isn't possible. That being said, I believe there should be some safeguard in place where it's not so easily accessible to minors. There should be either a task force or some part of the government specifically developed to fight pornography to ensure that minors are protected from pornography. We can all do our part in exposing pornography as the problem it truly is. Thank you. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Oh, I should time it.
Courtney,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Before you continue with the question, Taylor's trying to join and she didn't get an invite.
Okay. Yes, I heard her calling, and it was actually really distracting. And
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
I heard her calling on a different one, so I messaged her and told her you were speaking. And after you spoke, I would ask her to join, ask you to, because I couldn't invite her since I didn't initiate
No, it's
this.
totally fine. It's totally fine. No, but it was just like I heard it while I was speaking and I was like, oh, this is so distracting. Okay, Taylor, all right. I will invite her. Why is it not, what is her email? Do you guys know what her email is? I can't seem to find her on mine. Okay, I just invited her. Okay, so do you guys have any questions?
Maybe like, I don't know, I have the same topic and I was wondering, do you have any thoughts on like studies that could be done? Because a lot of people don't, from what you found in statistics, is there anything that you think could be looked into more? Because a lot of people just don't believe what's said. I don't know, did you have any thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I haven't actually really thought about it because there are so many studies out there that talk about the impact of pornography and how damaging it can be to relationships. But I think that they could further look into how it affects society as a whole, and how the government could be more involved because it affects society. Because I think that's one of the reasons why there aren't that many policies, is because people don't believe that it affects society as a whole. So they're like, why would we address this problem if it's not really an issue for all of society? Because we're the government, we're the federal government. We're not gonna, make a law if it's not really helping all of America. Does that make sense? So I think that if they did more studies that are for, the society as a whole and how it affects society as a whole, that would really help people to see how damaging it is to society. Any other questions?
Yes, let me think. I look forward to going back and listening to your talk, because that when she was calling me, I was a little distracted too. But I would look forward to going back. I did have a question on. Would you say that it's more of a threat to marriages or to dating couples in your research that you found so far?
That's a good question. So in the research that I found, it will say marriages, that it affects marriages in a certain way, but it also says relationships, which doesn't only mean marriages, it also like implies dating couples. So I would say that it affects marriages though. Hold on,
Okay.
Hold on, she's trying to call us. I'll answer your
Okay.
question further. I don't know where she's calling from though.
I think she's calling on a different one because I hear noise.
Yeah, I have no idea where it's going though. Maybe it doesn't work when you're already on a call. She said, oh, I have an idea. Okay, we should have just waited for her in hindsight. Okay. Okay, I sent her the link, which should work. Okay, so to further answer your question, I would say marriages, because when people are married, it's not as easy relationship. If you are dating somebody and they're struggling with pornography and it's really affecting you, then you can just, break off the relationship, or if you want to keep pushing forward, you can. But when you're in a marriage, especially, as Mormons, I don't know if we're supposed to address it as Mormons, but especially as Mormons, it really impacts your relationship as a whole, especially because of the belief that we have. And we believe that we need to work through anything possible that we can in a marriage, that we shouldn't give up, even if there's something big like an addiction to pornography. So for marriages, it more because of that. And it also means that there could possibly be children in the equation, which also makes it more complicated.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That was really good, Courtney.
Yeah, no problem.
So it looks like you sent her a link to the other video call, not this one.
How do you send a link to this one?
I just copied and pasted it from this video. It should be this video. Oh, it's going to her BYU Idaho account. That's what happened. Okay.
So do
I don't know why it's going to her.
Can you send it in the chat?
The link? No. Courtney has to send it. And her Gmail is TARAUJ13.
UJ13. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That should work. No wonder, because I think, yeah, that's weird. I don't know why it was. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on.
I was accidentally sending it to your BYU Idaho email because I guess that's on like the discussion board. And that's why you weren't getting the link, because I was sending it to the wrong one.
Okay, no, I was like, why? What is going on? Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Courtney gave her speech, but it's all recorded. So you can go back and listen to her speech and then do the
little grading thingy.
Yeah.
Peer evaluation. Yeah.
Sorry. And she was the one that could only send the invite, so I couldn't invite you.
No, that's okay. I was like, dang it, I hit every red light and I knew that I would. I'm like, I am in a hurry.
Oh.
Sorry. We should have just waited for you. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I figured. I was like, oh my gosh, we said like 7:15. No, go. I totally get it. So, but is Courtney the only one that gave her speech then?
Yes, I'm the only one who gave it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then she was just taking a question for her pornography topic. And we just were finishing that. Sorry.
So Taylor, if you want to ask me a question, I think we're all supposed to ask everybody a question, right? Is that how it's supposed to work?
Mm-hmm.
So Taylor, if you
Okay,
want to ask me a question.
Well, I don't really know because I didn't hear the speech.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. Has everyone already asked their questions?
Yeah, I asked if she felt pornography was more prevalent affected the threat more with married couples versus dating couples. That was my question.
Okay.
I just,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just asked her if she thought there was anything else that could be looked at for studies.
Okay. So what about, I know I don't remember if it was in this class or a different class, we talked about whether or not pornography should affect your decision to date or to marry. Do you think that with it being a problem, is it a problem that is so big that you think really can't be fixed, that people really shouldn't date or marry people with that problem? You know, does that make sense of a question?
Yeah, that makes sense. I would say no, that you shouldn't not date people who have viewed pornography or have an addiction, because I'll tell you exactly why. My friend, she has a guy friend, who was in a church class, and the question was raised, okay, so how prevalent is pornography? And then, so the guy who was teaching was like, let me start off. Raise your hand if you have viewed pornography or if you have an addiction. And every single guy in the room raised their hand. So it is a humongous issue that we don't even think that many people are facing, but so many people are facing it. And it's really prevalent in the church too, and we don't think it is. And so not dating somebody because they've either overcome an addiction or they're in the middle of addiction, I think that's not necessarily wrong, because I think some people can't handle it. So if you personally cannot handle something like that, then it's okay to not date somebody. But I think if you are really Christ-like and you believe in the power of the atonement, then you can date somebody. I don't think we're supposed to bring up church issues, but but that's what I would say. I would say, you can date somebody who has an addiction as long as they're willing to overcome it. If they are addicted and they love pornography and don't want to get over it, then no, don't date them, because that will just lead to unhappiness. Okay, perfect. All right, so who wants to give the next speech?
I can. I have the same topic as you.
Oh, perfect.
But I can go.
All right, great.
Give me one sec. Mine's on my laptop because that was the easiest way for me to do it. Okay, so my chosen thought to children and family is pornography. Pornography is one of the internet's most widely viewed forms of media. Men, women, children, and families see it and feel its devastating effects daily through harm to loving relationships and early addictions. Isolation, loss of desire for human interaction and relationships, and broken homes can all be caused by pornography addictions. A close friend of mine got into pornography by accident at the age of only 7 or 8. It took her years to recognize what she'd gotten involved in. The cost was evident in her life in devastating ways. She struggled with isolation throughout junior high and high school. She often found ways to view these things in private, and the pull of the computer was more intense than human interaction. These things left a mark on her childhood that will never go away. She struggles with close human relationships and feeling lost socially. If she did not learn to create meaningful and loving relationships with peers in her teen years, how can she be expected to create a family with another individual as an adult? A study by Zillman and Bryant found that those who used pornography felt less love for their partner than those who did not use pornography. Another study done in 2013 found that the use of pornography is associated with lower satisfactions in intimacy. This causes direct harm to the future of families and therefore children. How many other teens and preteens deal with the same effects and worse because they have been exposed to pornography? According to statistics, she was probably just one in about 40 million Americans to view pornography regularly. The effects include a lack of loving human relationships, Hurt and betrayal caused by pornography usage can lead to separation of parents. This removes a parent from the life of a child and can have social and emotional repercussions. These are all common symptoms of pornography. Pornography addiction can lead to the loss of love for human relationships. These things result in a negative home and family life for children. Pornography is an addiction that many children are experiencing and being introduced to while still in their childhood. A Midwest study found that the average age of first pornography exposure for 330 men was 13.7 years old. If that's not disturbing, consider that the youngest of these must have been subject to these images before he was even a teen, perhaps as young as my friend who was still a child. We have laws that protect children sexually, and yet there seems to be little done to protect them from this content. Some laws exist in regards to pornography. The Supreme Court has implemented a 3-part test to determine if something is considered obscene and therefore illegal. These include, first, that whether the average person applying contemporary adult community standards finds that the matter, taken as a whole, appeals to prurient interest, which may be erotic or abnormal. Second, whether the average person applying contemporary adult community standards finds that the matter depicts or describes sexual content in a patently offensive way. And thirdly, whether a reasonable person finds that the matter, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, and scientific value. This test would likely eliminate the pornography viewed by those 40 million Americans. Why then does pornography still run rampant in our society? Firstly, because this test is for court purpose only, and it can only be used if such media is brought to the court. While useful, it is still very individual-based, with little focus on protecting families from pornography, but instead on prosecuting individuals. The wording looks only at an adult point of view, which makes up only one individual group in a population. This test assumes that adults are the only viewers of such content. We are all aware that this is not the case, and so this test is not as thorough as it needs to be to protect children. The law addresses the problem, but only in determining what material is a problem. It does not do anything to educate the population on the issue, and really does very little to prevent it. Without research, would a person even know this document existed? It's not likely. There needs to be more information given to the public on the effects of pornography. This should happen at a local, state, and government level. Studies need to be conducted on the effects of pornography and their findings made public. In addition, more protective laws need to be created to help prevent children viewing pornography. This could be government implemented or implemented by the state and could include a verification of age, a viewing fee, or some other law that prevents pornography being accessed at the click of a mouse. Rather than creating a way to determine if the content is wrong once it's been created and viewed, we need to address preventing it from ever existing. Young minds are innocent and delicate. Families are important to our society and should be protected. As a society, it should be our goal to protect our children and families from such negative influences. Okay. So that's it. Any questions, thoughts?
So I have a question. So you had a lot of really good, fight back, like this is what we're gonna do to stop it. Do you think? I mean, what's like a time limit? Give me a good, So there's kids now, but they're already in the mix. So the upcoming future, how long do you think it's gonna take to resolve this? 5 years, 10 years? Is it even plausible? Do you think?
I think that kind of just depends on people. I think it's going to take time because a lot of people just don't see. I mean, people are starting to see that there's effects. But I think that depends on parents, especially like our generation teaching our kids and helping them be aware of what's going on, and our generation making laws to protect our kids. So it has to be, I think it has to be when we start to make the laws and the voting, I think. So if that makes any sense, because our generation is the one seeing the effects mostly.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
You mentioned some ways to prevent it from happening, that it's better to do prevention. I wonder what would be like one way a parent, could help prevent it from beginning with their children.
I think, kids don't like it, but I think safety precautions on electronics and determining what ages, and it's an awkward conversation to have with a kid. Like, this is what you shouldn't look for. This is, if this comes up, come to me and I'll tell you what it is. Like, having the kid come to you instead of just continuing to look at it. Like, say, this is the kind of thing you might see. Make sure you don't look at it, kind of like talking with them. Because I know that wasn't ever a conversation we had in my house.
Open communication. Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. That's really good. Thank you so much, Angel.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question, sorry, I don't know if I interrupted a thought. So, this is more of a general question. Why do you think pornography is so prevalent in our society today?
I think it's super accepted. I know, like in high school, I found out a guy friend had an issue with it, and my friend said, well, every guy does. And I think just the way our culture values family less. And when you value family less, you just feel like you value human beings less. I think we don't put as much emphasis on the importance of family and love and create those things. And so it just becomes another way to make yourself happy. But I don't know, that's what I've seen, at least with my friends. But I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it totally does. And I actually have a follow-up question to that. So do you think that it started with pornography, or do you think that it started with people not valuing families? Like, do you think pornography affected how people view families, or do you think how people viewed families affected how much they viewed pornography?
I feel like it's how people viewed families, because like that started before technology was really prevalent, and that's one of the biggest ways pornography's come along is. But I think people stopped caring about. I think the family decline started first, and this is just a part of it. But I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
Thank you.
Okay.
Should I go next?
Sure.
Okay. So let me try and find it. Sorry, I'm having trouble with, I don't use my laptop as much as my desktop. Let me find my speech. Okay. My threat is on same-sex marriage. And it's not a passion of mine, just to let you know. But it was like one of the only things left when I signed up at the beginning. So I really messed up on that. But but I'm grateful that they tell us to work at strengthening marriages and families, instead. So with that, I will begin. Okay. The Supreme Court has issued a decision, but that doesn't end the debate. Right now that the Supreme Court has ruled, Americans face debates about the nature of marriage and religious liberty. Because the court has redefined marriage in all 50 states, we have to protect our freedom to live according to conscience and faith as we work to try and rebuild a strong marriage culture. The Supreme Court's ruling didn't expand marriage, it redefined marriage. Chief Justice John Roberts remarked during one of the arguments, and I quote, "Every definition that I looked up prior to about a dozen years ago defined marriage as unity between a man and a woman as husband and wife. You're not seeking to join the institution, you're seeking to change what the institution is. The fundamental core of the institution is the opposite sex relationship, and you want to introduce into it a same-sex relationship." Closed quote. Ryan Anderson has taught us that no institution in our legal and political system upholds the principle that every child deserves a mother and a father. Redefining marriage as a genderless institution sends the signal that men and women, fathers and mothers, are interchangeable, and that's simply a lie. Same-sex marriages serve the desires of the adults, not the needs or rights of children. Studies show that there is empirical evidence that there is an association between same-sex marriage policies and mental health issues. The changes of the law have legal consequences. The deconstruction of marriage as a legal institution has lost relevance, and some aspects have been erased from the law. There is a general trend to view marriage as nothing but a contract. And this was reported by Dr. D'Aguirre in one of his studies. Studies have also shown that on about 40 years of research, a married biological mother and father family is better for the children compared with several alternatives such as single parenting, cohabitation, divorce, and also divorce with remarriage. These children living with their biological parents have advantages over the alternatives. This shows us that there is value for children in promoting strong, stable marriages between biological parents. And that's what we want to do. So what happens when marriages and families fall apart and break down? Well, for example, in the United Kingdom, roughly half of all children are born outside of marriage. More than 40% of marriages end in divorce, and the average length of cohabitation is less than 2 years. This resulted in a sharp increase among young people of eating disorders, drug and alcohol abuse, stress-related syndromes, depression, and actual and attempted suicides. With the collapse of marriages, it has read a new form of poverty among single parents, with the main burden on the women, who had 92% of single parent households. In Michigan, the Michigan Governor Rick Schneider signed into law for the state of Michigan 3 bills protecting the freedom of private adoption agencies to operate according to their beliefs, which includes the belief that children deserve a married mother and father. The people of Michigan insisted that their state pass laws to ensure that no private adoption agency could ever be forced to violate their beliefs or stop helping children. They have had a successful adoption system. For example, in 2014, 85% of children in the state of Michigan in the foster system, they were adopted into permanent loving homes. Another example that has been proposed in opposition of the Supreme Court's ruling is the introduction of the First Amendment Defense Act. This was introduced by Senator Mike Lee of Utah into Congress. Now, this act would prevent the federal government from discriminating against or penalizing anyone for believing that marriage is the union of husband and wife. It protects people from being punished for their beliefs about marriage after the Supreme Court had made their decision. Many American businesses, such as what we've read about in the news through bakers, florists, charities, and schools, have suffered as a direct result of their beliefs against the Supreme Court ruling legalizing same-sex marriage. They have suffered a form of reverse discrimination. Marriage exists to bring a man and a woman together as husband and wife, and to be a father and a mother to any children that they might bring into their marriage. Marriage benefits everyone involved, not just the family unit, but also the community. Because when healthy marriages are in place, the community does not need to come in and assist them when need is required, such as children's well-being and upbringing. So what do? Where do we start? The best place to start is within our own families. We can also fight for more limited government. We can see that more states implement laws like Michigan did. The future of our country depends on the future of marriage. The future of marriage demands that government policies support, not undermine, true marriage. Thank you. Thanks. Any questions?
So I have one question. So
Mhm.
you talked about how there was reverse discrimination. So do you have any recommendations of how we would stop this reverse discrimination?
Well, this act, which hopefully will get passed, signed, the one that the senator, the First Amendment Defense Act, that would protect people discriminating against or penalizing somebody for not believing, that, like what happened with the baker, with the bakery, how they didn't want to bake the cake, or people have for who didn't want to support, say, a same-sex marriage, and they wouldn't be discriminated against by not. So this is kind of huge, the First Amendment Defense Act that Senator Mike Lee proposed. He proposed it like a week right after the Supreme Court's ruling. So it's still in deliberation, I should say. So that would be one form, as well as the states getting involved, like the state of Michigan that I told you about got involved with their adoption agencies. There have been several other states that have gotten involved too and have passed laws protecting the people in their states that believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. So getting the states involved would be beneficial. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
So what do you think is the biggest, argument on the opposing side? For example, they could raise the fact that, hey, this is a religious right that you're taking away. Like, in that retrospect, what is their biggest argument against what you're standing for?
What is their biggest argument?
Mm-hmm.
The definition of marriage, I think. Is that what you're?
Yeah. What do you think that, you have one point and then they're fighting against it? What is their biggest argument against you?
Their biggest argument is is defining marriage. They don't believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. They believe that it could be between anybody. It could be between, actually they believe, they're thinking that it can be between two of the same sex. Another, I think it was a justice that during the deliberations of the Supreme Court ruling brought up a really interesting fact, stating that, well, what about two siblings? They fall under the same category. You could, who's to say that two siblings can't marry? And, that's just kind of a far-fetched way of looking, trying to pinpoint. So I think the biggest issue with them is the definition of marriage, I think.
That's a good answer. Thank you.
From what I found.
You mentioned parents raising kids. A lot of my friends will say, well, it doesn't matter who you are, you can raise a kid. What are some of the differences that you feel like there are, like, between men and women? Like, what differences do they bring for a kid?
Okay. I think a really good example is the example that we see from fathers and their daughters. So we've seen a lot of studies on how important it is to have fathers in the home. Well, if you're a lesbian couple and there's no father in the home, the children are going to miss out on all those advantages that a father brings into a family, to the children, especially the biological father. The studies have shown the children have a much greater influence, have a much greater advantage from having a biological mother and father, both educationally, financially, socially, and mentally. It affects the children better. So you would lose that relationship if you didn't have if you didn't have a father figure, and then also if you didn't have a biological parent, you would lose that connection too.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thanks.
I don't want to go. And I picked really bad topics, so please love me. Okay. So mine is on technology use and its overuse in families. Okay. Just going to go with it. I dropped my iPhone, and now it's the end of the world. I have food on my table and a roof over my head and a healthy family, but sadly, it's the end of the world. Technology, you see, is now the center of my life. After all, it does cuddle me to sleep and make me hot chocolate on cold nights, right? No. Technology is just as good as my family, and that's why I choose to ignore my family for something a little more advanced. This whole concept is unfathomable, right? In fact, it makes absolutely no sense. And yet, this mindset is the world we live in today. It's the mindset that we don't really see taking place unless we stop and smell the threat. I work for Disney World. I see families all the time in what is supposed to be their happiest and most magical vacation days. And after 2 years of expecting families to look like a happy-go-lucky Disney commercial, I have learned that families are becoming far from that. This past weekend, I watched a father holding the hand of his little boy through Magic Kingdom. Cute, right? Except for the fact that his father was walking around with headphones in both of his ears. I mean, I suppose this wouldn't be a problem if his son weren't yanking on his arm and yelling that he needed to use the potty. And even this wouldn't seem so bad if the father had then taken out his headphones and taken him to the nearby restroom. Instead, the poor little boy urinated his pants. The father then found it necessary to take out his headphones, only to yell at the little boy that he should have told him he had to go. I was appalled. I wish this were the only time I had seen technology take preference over family and life. We've passed laws to stop texting and driving. Some states have even made laws against talking on the phone and driving. And according to addiction.com, technology can now be considered an addiction, stating technology addiction, sometimes called internet addiction, internet use disorder, or internet addiction disorder, is a fairly new phenomenon. When did the world get so confused over the importance of safety, life, and family that we now have laws and addictions dedicated to the advancement of technology and its uses? You're probably thinking, well, yes, there are laws and names for the addictions, but how does this affect the family? It affects the family the same way it affected that little boy at Disney World. Families are becoming second-rate and ignored by individuals. This may not be a family issue yet, but it's an individual's issue, and individuals make up the family. Texting and driving means that you care more about sending out a message than the fact that you're driving. It means killing innocent family members because your LOL just couldn't wait. The addiction means wearing headphones at Disney World so you can hear your podcast over your child's plea for attention. This is how it affects the family. We are training the future generation to believe that when they hold a cell phone or an iPad or any type of technology in their hands, they are holding the answers of the world. Our future generation is losing valuable brain activity because of the examples we are showing them. A study done by BBC News states, a recent study by the London School of Economics suggests that in schools which banned mobile phones, children's test scores increased by more than 6%. The ban of technology in schools and in some workplaces where it's not necessary could greatly affect society. What can we do? How can we change? I believe that government needs to come up with a plan to limit the use of technology in homes and in families. I know that this seems a bit much, but clearly families can't handle the limitations on their own. It's time for the government to step in and protect the minds of the future and save the minds of today. Family is becoming overlooked, and technology and its overuse in society today are to blame. Thank you.
Great speaker. You did a good job. Don't worry about it. You did great.
I went really fast, and I was like, you need to calm down.
No, you did really good.
Yeah, that
so
was good.
My question for you is, because technology is so addictive, how would you propose that we overcome this addiction?
Well, for starters, I think that we need to slow down with what we're doing. So because I work for companies that are very, very technology driven, I understand the need to have apps and to have online coupons and have emails and things like that. But I don't think it's necessary. And I think that the first thing that we can do is we can take a look at individual places that seem to overuse the use of technology and get them to slow down. For example, Disney does not need 3 different apps for their park. You know, that just draws me in. You're using too much to draw people in, and we need to slow down, I think, is the first step that we could do.
Thank you.
That's really
I was
good.
just going to say, I saw that. I was in Disney like a couple weeks ago, and that was insane to me. But just as a thought.
Who's got a question?
I can't see how government would get involved. I don't know. How?
That was something I kind of was questionable about too. But I think I know where your question's going. Did you want to ask it? Sorry.
Or maybe I should say I wouldn't want them involved.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that would be beneficial. What do you think?
I think that there are ways to go about, I guess, limiting or restricting without limiting or restricting us. I don't necessarily think that they need to monitor it, which is probably everyone's biggest fear, so much as they need to enforce a little bit better. There are laws, there's things that have been made that should get us thinking about our technology use. And I feel like if they enforced it a little bit better, then maybe we would stop. And I don't know how I want to say it. I do not need to be watching 30 episodes of Grey's Anatomy every night. And I think that if there were some sort of something with the government watching not us as individuals, but companies. Whereas then if Netflix says, wow, you've watched 30 episodes of Grey's Anatomy today, done. It's not the government watching me, it's the government watching companies which are watching me and my use to them. But companies aren't going to do that because it makes them money. Well, that's where the government needs to step in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I guess to build off of her, though, where does the line be drawn? Where can the line be drawn, though? Because I have siblings who read too much. They sit in their bedroom and they read all day. If you start letting government in, how much and where is their authority, I guess? Do you have any thoughts? Because, I mean, we were learning about government is supposed to be, where it isn't.
Uh-huh. I think that's still something I think needs to be worked out. And this is definitely harder because it's an issue that it's still it's still borderline. It's like I said in my speech, it's a fairly new phenomenon. People haven't really given much thought about it. So it's hard to say where the line would realistically be drawn and where I would draw it. But I think that it's different. It's different between the books and the movies and things, because books enhance your mind while technology is destroying it. And I think that that's where the line needs to be drawn. Are we benefiting ourselves and society? Because government's all about making society high and mighty, but they don't seem to have a problem that we're destroying it. And so I think that the line needs to be drawn where, I don't know, I guess it comes back to where everyone else's issue is. When is too much too much? And I guess I don't have a solid answer other than we need to do more research. We need to find more answers because it's a fairly new phenomenon, and so we don't have the answers yet.
Do you think it would be beneficial to do like something educational with parents or something so that parents could choose how to help their children too? Like if you could give more information to parents and to families at a local level?
I think so. And to be honest, I think it's more of a parent problem than it is a kid problem, because it's not like these kids pick up their iPads on their own and think, I know how to use this. This is cool. It's the parents that they're watching, sitting there using it, that then they pick it up and say, hey, how do I use this? And then the kids are getting addicted. It starts with the parents. We don't need to train parents how to teach their kids. We need to train parents how to teach themselves. And I think that, I think that's a great idea. There needs to be family life workshops. There needs to be, promotional ads. There needs to be something that teaches adults how to adult, basically, without technology.
Very good.
On HOA right now. So.
Okay.
Okay, great job, everybody. I think we're good to go. Unless anybody has anything else to add. No, we're good.
A quick question. I haven't looked over our stuff too much yet. For our evaluations, are we supposed to post that? There's a Dropbox for that, right? We don't post that on the discussion board.
No, you actually just click on a link and then you just evaluate it and you click like send, and then it'll say like submit another response, and then you just click on that, and then it's super easy and super quick. So because I already did all of them.
Oh, you're fast.
Yeah. Well, because like you can leave comments, but you don't have to leave comments.
Okay.
So.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that was my question, so we're good.
All right. All right. Well, y'all have a great weekend. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you too.
Next week, okay? I will send a message and let you guys know. I have to go back to Florida, so I will let you know. But I may.
Okay.
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 Thank
Bye.
you.
All right. Bye. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Have a good night too. Bye-bye.
Bye.